Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Equal Television, where we keep you updated with the happenings. Part of what is making rounds on our people is still regarding the 50% tariff hike for the telecoms, where we're saying that the telecommunications are complaining that 50% is insufficient. Meanwhile, we're saying that NLC is coming out to actually, really frown. It seems like there's even a spill. We're having a different fraction. Those who are saying it's okay, for those who are saying it's not okay. We will recall yesterday, Syrup have given the government about 48 hours to reverse that. So quite a number of conversation regarding this the telecommunication tariff hike. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's see how this whole conversation is going to turn out to be. I am Seda Elisha Dashom. I will be doing this program alongside Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Good morning, Sally.
All right, we have quite a number we would love to go through, starting with this day newspaper.
The first story on the paper, Keyamo queries 532 billion naira variation for Abuja Airport second runway. The big story, Labour spits fire over 50% telecoms tariff hike, says corporate cartels being prioritized above citizens' welfare. Hike must reflect on service delivery, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission tells operators. UI students protest 82-day power outage. Bello Turgis camps in this array, second in command, 24 others killed, a report from the defense headquarters. Ekweremadu's wife returns to Nigeria after 3 years in UK prison. You can find details on page 6. And we have a picture story. House members representing Abuja South, Abdul Rahman Ajia, FCT Minister of State, Maria Mahmood, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, Coordinator Satellite Towns Development Department, Abdul Kadir, and Vice Chairman Gwagwalada Area Council Saidu Zuba and others during the commissioning of the Pekon Kore Iwa Road in Gwagwalada yesterday. And that's all the news on this Nigeria.
On the Nation newspaper, where we have pharmacy, physiotherapy, optometry, now 6-year courses. This is coming from the Nigerian University Commission. You can read more detail for those who are planning to actually go read those courses in the university. UK to sustain collaboration with Nigeria on democracy. And then we have federal government have spent 300 billion naira on FCT Council, says Wike. Kidnapped suspect arrested after receiving 1 million naira ransom. More data found inside the paper. Tunji, second in command, killed. You can find more detail of these, and I wonder why we're giving so much relevance to Tunji. We've been having him on the papers for the past 3 days, so I'm wondering if we do not have stories to be on the front page of our paper. But nevertheless, we're having information concerning what is happening over there. Still on the Nation newspaper, DSS files terrorism charges against Mehdi Shaidu. You can find that story on page 27. NLC TUC CNG reject a 50% telecom tariff hike. With the writer here saying the Labour is saying it is ill-timed and insensitive. Northern groups demand immediate reversal. It's a good takeoff point, says operators. And then we have the FCCPC to monitor compliance by service providers. All this can be found in the paper. Financial sector regulators rules out hyperinflation. More detail in the paper. Why Damagum should continue in office till December. This is coming from the National Working Committee members. Proxy war killing main opposition party. Ekweremadu's wife returned from UK prison. We will recall the scandal they had regarding organ harvesting for their daughter. So more detail of that story can be found on page 25. And then we have another story on page 26 where we have the governor of Edo State have recruited 500 teachers. More detail of the story can be found in the paper, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On New Telegraph, Nigeria to champion Africa's $29 trillion economy target. Federal government approves new 10,000 barrel per day refinery construction in Delta. On food scarcity, federal government begins nationwide Operation Clear Stores. Abuja Airport, Keyamo rejects 532 billion naira contract variation for second runway. Ekwerimadu's wife released from UK prison returns to Nigeria. PDP crisis, elected deputies ask anti-Damagun forces to quit. The big story is on telecoms tariff hike. Government abandoned masses to corporate fat cats. This is a statement from NLC that the government have abandoned masses to corporate fat cats. You can find details on page 3 and 7. The writer says spending 15% of salary on communication unsustainable. Malls mobilization to boycott telecom services. FCCPC wants telcos to provide quality service. On Anambra Guba, INEC warns parties against invalid nominations, while Alia locked out commissioner civil servants during unscheduled visit. National Assembly asks ministry to return 2 billion naira to agencies. You can find details on page 5. We are abandoned projects. FCT doctors lament begin 3-day strike. DSS files terrorism charges against Mahdi Shehu, gets order to keep suspect for 60 days. Now, troops kill Bello Turji's deputy, 7 key commanders, inflicts terminal injuries on several others. A report from the defense headquarters. You can find details on page 3 and 4. All medical-related students to spend longer years in school. If you want to know why, you can find details on page 2. For those of us that want to study pharmacy, you want to study physiotherapy and optometry, and now it's 6 years. It was 5 years, but now we are seeing the NUC upgrading these programs to 6 years. If you want to know why, before you fill in your JAM form for pharmacy and all of that, you should know that it's no longer 5 but 6. We have a study on page 30, traffic pollution linked to women's mental health. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
On Dailies newspaper, telecom tariff hike must translate to improved services, FCCPC insists. With the rider, Labour reject the increase. More data found on page 2. Naira crash, domestic borrowing balloon Nigerians' debt to 142.3 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2024. The big story is regarding a fresh twist in power play that is happening in the PDP. Damagun men, their opponents mock aggrieved members. More data found inside the paper. $30,000 EFCC on trail of officer who allegedly looted exhibited room in Kaduna. You can find that on page 4. EFCC on trail of officer who allegedly looted exhibit room in Kaduna. NUC upgrade pharmacy, physiotherapy, and other degree and optometric degrees to doctor status. So then it was just a bachelor degree, but now it has been upgraded to a doctor status. So do well to read more detail of that. Tanker explosion killed driver, injures one in Ibadan. Tanker explosion kills driver, injures one in Ibadan. And we have the picture story. Students of College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, protesting persistent power outage at the University College Hospital yesterday. We hope the government will look into that and restore power back. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Umoji Banker of the Year 2024 is saying Leadership Award means there's something I'm doing well. Trending, NLC condemns 8 billion naira for electricity bill sensitization. Numbers, Nigeria's public debt hit 142.3 trillion naira. You can find both trend and numbers on page 2. Nigeria global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050. NLC condemns 50% data hike, calls for nationwide boycott. The big story, counter-insurgency war. Troops close in on Turji, kills second in command. You can find details, and I believe that the defense headquarters is making progress. First, it was his son, and we saw yesterday that some captives were released yesterday, and today his second in command was killed. So it means that as the day goes by, they are getting closer to capturing Turji Bello. The writer says 24 others neutralized kingpin on the run. Turji's brother Doso, ally Don Bokolo, inflicted terminal wounds. This is a report from the defense headquarters, and you can find details on page 4. On immigration, Trump seeks raid in churches and schools. 9 pregnant girls rescued from Abuja home. We've spent 300 billion naira on area council development, a statement from Wike, and Ekweremadu's wife returns from UK prison. You can find details on page 7, and then we have a picture story where we can see Leadership Gold Standard Awards picture series. This time around, it is the minister, FCT minister Wike, that is the winner of Quinal Award of Infrastructure and Governance. The credit goes to Mr. President. The award will inspire me to work harder. A statement from Wike himself, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, bandits abduct councillor from his Kaduna resident. We'll keep our fingers crossed, hope he will be rescued. Court grant Erufai's XA3 orders bill in 64.8 million naira fraud case. And then we have a 33.8 million naira fraud. I retrieved more than 22 billion naira from Power Ministry. This is coming from the BDC operator. You can look into that story of the fact that he received more than that. We will hurt people while trying to unite the North, Hamza Al-Mustafa warns. The former chief of staff to the late head of state, Sani Abacha, Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, have said that effort to bring the North back on the path of progress would hurt people. So you can read more detail of what he have to say. Wheat rice prices crash in Gombe amid low demand. NAFDAC sale warehouse over 75 million naira worth of expired products in Kaduna. And then we have Supreme Court fixed February 10 to hear 5 cases regarding rivers. And we have Governor Sani restate dethrone Pariga monarch. This is talking about Kaduna, so you can read that detail in the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story, NLC kicks against 50% telecom tariff hike, says it's harsh burden on Nigerians. Tariff increase must result in significant service improvement, as CCPC is saying, and I think most Nigerians will agree. If we have to accept 50% increase, then of course we have to truly have unlimited service and available. At the top of the paper, Tinubu commits over 30 billion naira to infrastructure development of FCT satellite towns, a statement from Wike. Bello Turji's camp in disarray, troops killed second in command and 24 others. Sokoto government alerts residents on fleeing bandits. Sharia panel holds inaugural sitting in Ekiti. You can find details on page 11. Ekweremadu's wife regains freedom from UK prison, returns to Nigeria. College of Medicine students protest 84-day blackout in UCH. Court denies EFCC arrest warrant request for Otudeko, Onosanya, and others. UN seeks $910 million for humanitarian crisis in the Northeast. You can find details of this international story on page 30. French investors eye Ogun Agro Cargo Airport and others. CBN approves release of FX code to take off January 28. Nigeria global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050 in the World Economic Forum. You can find details on page 3, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Vanguard newspaper, starting with a big story, which is telecoms, NLC, TUC, CNG, and others reject 50% tariff hike. The writer following that story, NLC rallies Nigerians against hike, threatening to mobilize workers and others to boycott telecom services. Says government is in prioritizing corporate profit over citizens' welfare. Shocking 50% telecom tariff hike outrageous coming from the trade union. Northern Group's forum demands suspension, and then we have Hurua condemns the move, say it's illegal and oppressive. Hike will overstretch workers, masses elastic patience coming from MSA. Nigeria heading towards unpredictable disaster, JAF warns, and then SERAP and others threaten to sue the government regarding that. More detail can be found on page 5. Manufacturers unsold goods topped 1.4 trillion naira in 2024, coming from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Presidency proposes stricter sanctions on airlines over flight delays and cancellation. And then regarding the World Economic Forum for 2025, Nigeria, global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050. Support Damugum or leave elected deputies tell on opening regarding the PDP crisis. More detail of that can be found on page 9. Regarding the birthright citizenship, Nigerians in diaspora kicks says it's illegal. Trump okays immigration raid of churches, hospitals, and schools. More detail found on page 9. Bandit influx, Southwest governors not collaborating with us, coming from Gani Adams, OPC, and the Hunters. More detail of this story can be found on page 10. And then we have a picture story. We can see Ramaphosa meeting with Shetima. This was still during the World Economic Forum. And then we have a column for sport on page 30. You can do well to read more detail of that. And that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, costly by-elections worry INEC as IPAC demands credible polls. Doctors protest unpaid salaries ground Abuja hospitals. Economic crisis spikes malnourishment among 5.4 million kids, UNICEF warns. 50% tariff hike insufficient, says telcos amid pushback by subscribers. Lagos warns against sharing child pornography, threatens 14-year jail term. You can find details on page 8, and I think should be a Nigerian law, not just a Lagos law. There are a lot of rubbish out there going out even on the internet, and it shouldn't be accepted. It shouldn't only be a Lagos state thing, but an entire Nigerian thing. Court sentences Abuja bishop to 20 years for rape. Tinubu spent 300 billion naira on Abuja satellite towns in 12 months. UCH students protest 82 days of blackout and harsh environment. 22 deaths, 143 confirmed cases of Lassa fever recorded in 2 weeks, and that is to say Lassa fever haven't gone anywhere. It's back and it's still spreading and killing people, and this is just a 2-week report. You can find details on page 3. NWC insists on Damagun, worries over PDP's future, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, oil exploration, Mossop fault Tinubu's meeting, monarchs begin consultation. More detail found on page 2. APC LP backs INEC on by-election, dismiss Falana's proposal. Troops close in on bandit leader Turnji, kill commanders and 24 militants. More detail found on page 2. Regarding tariff hike, NLC asks subscribers to prepare for Telkom's boycott. I hope that this will not make people to take matters into their hands and go destroy things. So we should actually treat with caution things like this. More details found on page 19. The big stories regarding Kano, Niger Republic rail project. Communities tackle federal government over compensation of 3,252 owners. The writer following that story, project continues despite Nigeria-Niger tension. 5,531 persons dissatisfied with the compensation. More detail found on page 2. Enugu community celebrates Ekwerimado's wife returned from UK jail. And on mass deportation, U.S. target churches, mosques, schools, and hospitals. More detail found on page 7. And then as well, we are seeing Owade put traditional rights on hold, returns to Canada. That is regarding their LFA position there. Detail found on page 14. Group asks IG to probe controversial video of Mohbad's death. Again, Anyanwu Ude Okoye clash over PDP secretary seat. More detail found on page 12. We have a picture story. We can see the Commandant Nigerian Navy Secondary School, Abeokuta Commander, and as well we can also see other people who are present with him, other officers present, and then as well with the governor of Ogun State there. You can do well to get the paper, read more detail of other stories of interest to you, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, World Economic Forum 2025, Nigeria global leaders target $29 trillion African economy by 2050 rather. The paper is having 2025, but it is for 2050, 29 trillion African economy for 2050. The big story on the paper, tax reforms. Afenifere asks National Assembly to consider people's interest. Ogun PDP challenges Abiodun over insecurity in the state. PDP crisis worsened as Deputy National Officer bagged Damogun. Troops dismantle Bello Truji's camps. Federal government invests 60 billion naira on fiber optic cable coverage. Explain 50% tariff hike. The last story on the paper, UK pledges support to tackle plastic insecurity pollution. Details can be found on page 4. That's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
Right before we continue further with the paper review, please let's take this time out to actually let you through the stories. And when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper where Labour is actually not happy with the 50% tariff hike, and they have actually threatened to boycott the telecommunication. As well as we are also looking at what is happening regarding the World Economic Forum, where there have been a target of what Africa is hoping to reach by 2050. And then we're saying that regarding what is happening in the health sector, already doctors in Abuja have actually started a 3-day warning strike regarding their unpaid salary. So we're beginning to see that the fear that was being presented by the chief of medical directors yesterday, which they presented to the House of Reps, is coming to, is coming to pass. So we hope that the government will take them seriously, and then whatever the government is owing them, they will pay them. We have quite a number of stories as well. Please do well to drop your views and your comment regarding any of the story that's of interest to you. As they have reached out with me, thank you.
You're welcome, Philip.
All right, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Metric newspaper. Nigeria's public debt increases by 8 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2024, and right now is at 142.3 trillion naira. You can continue this conversation on page 23. As well, we have use FCT hospitals striking doctors dear Wiki, Apabio and Abbas. Lapon's FCT minister for being very busy with fixing roads and neglecting the health care. So we hope that he doesn't just focus on one angle, but he should be all round. This is what is happening. So you can read more detail of that story on page 3. and ridiculous Ukraine war or face severe sanction, Trump tell Putin. And ridiculous Ukraine war or face severe sanction, Trump tell Putin. You can read detail of that on page 3. NLC talks tough over telcos tariff hike, power grid collapse. Demand ideally boost resignation amid incessant grid collapses, and then minister's statement on grid collapse continuation is clear admission of incapacity. And then telcos tariff hike clear assault on Nigerian workers, more detail found in the paper. Court dismisses syrup suit challenging National Assembly budget increase. Ekweremadu's wife released from UK prison returns to Nigeria. FCCPC demands service improvement after telecom tariff increase. More detail found on page 11. We have an entertainment story on page 21. You can do well to get the paper and read more detail, and that's all on Metric newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, mixed reaction trail oil scooping in Mina barely 48 hours after Diko tragedy. The writer says multi-dimensional poverty pushing Nigerians to the wall, a statement from an activist. Nigerians must return to family values and abandon greed, high up is saying. Reckless attitude in Bida heart-wrenching, statement from Kaduna SSA Public Affairs. On recapitalization, Wema Bank to raise 200 billion naira capital. NAFDAC seals warehouse housing over 75 million naira worth of expired products. Tariff hike approval, FCCPC tax telecom operators to improve service delivery infrastructure. CBN to unveil FX code January 28 to boost transparency. Navy Ogun government to flag off naval base dockyard. You can find details on page 3. And the last story here is a statement from Dr. Muda Yusuf, how Trump's economic policies will influence Naira and strengthen Forex inflow. How it will influence Naira strength and Forex inflow. Details can be found on page 4, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On First newspaper, with Deputy dead, Tronji faces military next target, so hopefully the military are heading for him because they are taking it one step at a time. 962 arrested nationwide as police tackle crime search. Nigeria, Russia to partner on space tech, STEM and agriculture. More detail found in the paper. Federal government will launch aircraft manufacturing company in Nigeria, coming from the Minister of Aviation, Kiyamo. NLC declare war on telecom tariff hike, calls Nigerians to boycott services over unbearable 50% increase. More detail found in the paper. NUC upgrades pharmacy, physiotherapy, optometry to doctoral programs. FCT doctors begin strike over unpaid salaries, warn of total shutdown. Ekiti Sharia panel holds first public sitting on dispute. And we have a picture story moment. Governor Dabo Abiodun of Ogun State presented a bungalow and 5 million naira to Kayode Adewale, a mathematics teacher ranked among the top 50 globally in the prestigious Global Teacher Prize by the Vicky Foundation in partnership with UNESCO. And really, we're really excited. We hope more teachers will join, and this will give room for them to give and also teach passionately. And that's all on First News newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, the First News, Ekweremadu's wife released from UK prison back in Nigeria. In the previous paper, we saw that she was received with jubilation in Enugu, and just can't help but wonder what is our mindset as a country. This offense is a deadly one, a dangerous one to whosoever would have been the victim of organ harvesting, but for some reason, we are celebrating her return to the country. It just tells us where we still are with our mindset and even what we accept as a country. CBN unveils code to boost transparency and ethics in foreign exchange. Nigeria willing to host all Africa Games, statement from DICO. Deportations, Trump okays raid on churches, schools and hospitals. Panama files complaint with UN over Trump's threat to seize canal. You can find details on page 8. The World Economic Forum 2025 Nigeria Global Leaders Target $29 trillion African economy by 2050. The big story on the paper: 72 hours after eliminating Sun, troops close in on Turji, neutralize second-in-command Kanawa and allies. The writer says Governor Rada rules out negotiation with terrorists. Boko Haram attack Konduga community, kill one civilian JTF member. You can find details on page 6. We have other stories on the paper. Do well to get the Blueprint newspaper, and that's all the news on Blueprint.
All right, let's take a look at Daily Independent newspaper. I rejected contract variation of 532 billion naira from 90 billion naira coming from Kiamu. Regarding organ harvesting, UK authorities free Okoremado's wife from prison. You can do well to read more detail of the story. The big story on the paper: NLC told the federal government stop 50% telecom tariff hike implementation. Writers say ask Nigerians to prepare for action to compel the hike reversal. Ask Nigerians to prepare for action to compel hike reversal. CNG kicks demand resignation of NCC boss and the minister. You can read more detail of all this in the paper. Resign, stop the marketing PDP, national officers tell members. You can find that story in the paper. Oil market faces strong selling pressure as crude drops below $80. Collective investment scheme increased to over 3 trillion naira in 2024. More detail found on page 6. FRS insists Nigeria not yet hyperinflation economy. You can read who and why they said that. FCT doctors begin strike over unpaid salaries. And also we have a Motiku one bandit says Southwest not safe haven for them. So you can read more detail of that. As well, we're seeing that INEC has fixed FCT area council election for February 21st, 2026. So you should be aware that we'll be having the council election next year. So they're already preparing towards that. More detail of that story can be found on page 6, and that's all in the Independent newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story: Old Guard Musa Ideye face or reignite NPFL rivalry. Hearn reveals conditions for Joshua versus Wilder fight. Lazio rejects Brighton's Dele Bashiru offer. Osimhen charges Gala teammates after Europa draw. You can find details on page 7. UCL goal thrills Lukman, and we saw on the other paper where his coach is saying he's irreplaceable. You can find details on page 7. Mbappe responds to Messi jealousy claim. 115 FFP, Haaland backs City to avoid penalty. Lewandowski equals Ronaldo UCL record. United lower Garnacho asking price. You can find details on page 5. On cricket, Nigeria to face England, Ireland in World Cup. Hamilton makes Ferrari debut. He's no longer with Mercedes. You can find details on page 2, and that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
All right, let's take a look at Business Day newspaper. FX induced FAAC windfall dries up as Naira stabilizes. You can read more detail of that story in the paper. Manufacturing, telecoms, mining now top 3 VAT earners for Nigeria as controversies rage over revenue derivation formula. We're seeing manufacturers and the information technology as well as mining and quarrying have emerged as the top 3 source of VAT revenue for Nigeria. According to the most recent data from the National Bureau of Statistics, you can read more detail of that story on page 31. Here is top 5 most active stock in 2025. So you want to know that, do well to read that. Still, we're having pharmacies, physiotherapists, now doctors. Covenant, ABU, Landmark, top 2025 Nigerian universities ranking, where we're seeing that we hope other universities and tertiary institutions can also join in the top ranking. So you want to know what were the criteria that they were given this. Do well to read that story on page 29. We have the picture story. We can see the president of Botswana, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the World Trade Organization, and Kashim Shettima, Vice President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, at the ongoing annual meeting of the 2025 World Economic Forum in Switzerland. And that's all on Business Day newspaper as well as how far we can go on the program this morning. So thank you for keeping a date with us. We look forward to get to do this together tomorrow. Please do have a great day ahead.